the best coffee, people, and amazing stories so you don't have to.
Pay attention, you're going to learn something for a change.
This is a show about all of those things and much, much more.
You're blowing my mind right now. I hope someone's recording this.
So settle in, pour a cup of amazing coffee. He's a coffee snob, by the way. Crank that ghetto blaster and enjoy the 150,000 ranked podcast in the land.
Fake laugh, hiding real pain.
I think that's an exaggeration. It's the Brenton On Tour podcast.
Any question?
Here's BD.
Friends, what's happening? Welcome back. It's the Brenton On Tour podcast for another week, continuing with the Sober on Tour series. I'm getting lots of feedback. So far, my inbox on this thing, and I touched on it before, people don't make a lot of comments on the socials. They'll make the occasional comment on the socials, but I get a lot in the inbox. Hey, I'm 3 months in. I'm 28 days in. I'm 30 days in. Just not really telling anybody yet. So, hey, to each their own journey, all the rest of it. Good for you. And, everyone that's listening to this and supporting everyone and the guests that are coming on, I appreciate it because, we've been doing some really great feedback. And thanks to my guest, Todd Kearns, last week for coming on. Imagine touring with, small town prairie boy, and he's playing with the guitar player from Guns N' Roses, who's the most famous drinker in the world. Yeah, probably. Anyways, and playing in a band where you join that band and then he's sober. You're like, what? Slash is sober? Yeah, it's a whole thing. But good on Todd for maintaining that world and having got one of the best voices in the world, and he's maintaining it through sobriety as well. So good for him. This week, I got two friends of mine that do what I do. We travel the world and run concerts in various forms. And I wanted to touch a little bit about what's happening in our world from our perspective and what we see on a regular basis out there, and some of the different changes that we've been seeing in in the business. The two gentlemen that join me today are sober as well. Just how we're doing it and how we're maintaining it. So I'm going to welcome to the show Justin Fry. How are you, sir? Welcome to the show. And Jaime Horton. Gentlemen, welcome. Good to see you. Hey. Thanks for joining me.
Happy to be here.
Now, You guys are. I'm out. Justin, you're out. Jaime, you're just home, and it's been an interesting one out there. Kind of noticing as we get back on tour and sort of seeing the changes in what we're going through, post COVID and all the rest of it. It's definitely been an interesting kind of touring time to get back out there. It's got a new kind of tone vibe to it. I don't know. It's kind of weird. So first things first, how has tour been going? Jaime, let me start with you because you just got home from a tour. But how's the new touring going for you, man?
Well, it's completely different. I mean, I came out with an act when we were still kind of hot, just right on the coattails of COVID. And everything's changed. I mean, from top to bottom, it's just COVID just brought in a whole nother aspect of, things we have to worry about and work around and work and deal with and everything. And then it's also been interesting to see, how it's changing as we come out of it. But yeah, definitely a big impact, with the testing, the bubbles, on your days off, hey, don't go out to restaurants, don't go out to public places, so I think that was a big change for a lot of people, and then of course just the virus being out there and then being on the road with it and worrying about getting sick on the road with it. So
it's weird because we the touring that we're used to, band dinners and things like that, the bubble and the bus, the separate buses and everyone not really interacting and it's crucial. I mean, you got to keep the thing rolling.
Yeah.
But it's such an odd thing to be out there now, and you're on your own a lot more. fine. Some people welcome that. We've all just come from a world when we've been alone for 2 years, but it's just an interesting, lots of hotel time, lots of just being by yourself and all the rest of it. Justin, what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time. I also got back out to work in the back half of last year, and seems like so far, it's different in different places that you go, and it's been interesting to kind of see, what areas, what venues are sort of more stringent about things, and then how we adapt and deal with that. But I definitely agree with you about this moment being an opportunity for us to sort of look inward, because there is more sort of forced alone time. And that's why, I was excited to join you today. I'm really appreciative that you're doing this kind of thing, because the attention to mental health, especially in our industry, especially in these times, I just think is really important. So I applaud you for that. I'm happy to be here and talk about it. It's cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because mental health is a thing in this business that we can add the layers to it. We're away from family. It's 7 months away here. It's 8 months away. It's in and out. Then you get home, and then you got to unwind, and then you got to get back to it and go back out. So that's always been a thing. But then people go home, and then COVID hits, and now you're at home for 2 years. And some people needed that break. I mean, I think our business has not really had a break like this, maybe ever. Like September 11th, there was 2 weeks or something like that, but there hasn't been this break of 2 years, which gave everyone a chance to kind of slow down, but also reflect, as you said, Justin, like, and talking on that kind of that world, to kind of look at where you're at mentally, all the rest of it. And that worked for some, not for others. We've lost some people in our business, and it's tough. And I think our business needs a pretty decent look at, a really good look at mental health and how we're maintaining. So these conversations are happening kind of internally on the bus and some other little things, but I rarely get a chance to talk to a whole bunch of people about what they're seeing, and then little things that we can do to try to maintain being on, keeping our mental health and all the rest of it. So I guess the big thing that, we're gathered here to talk about being sober on tour, but I want to start with a question here, sort of like, what kind of changes are we seeing on tour when it comes to sobriety? We can get into like our individual kind of journeys for a minute, but I have really noticed, at least since I've been back out and towards the end of the last run before COVID, the real push on being fit, being active, mental checks, mental health, all the rest of it, really in the last 3 to 4 years. And then on this run, and since COVID's hit, I'm really seeing these kind of check-in kind of moments out there. So my question to you guys is sort of, what kind of changes are you seeing on tour when it comes to sobriety, but also to mental health and being fit and being out there? Let's go, Justin, you're still out there right now. So let's have a get your thoughts on this.
Sure. I think one of the biggest things that I've noticed is that people are more open to talk about it. People are, at least some of the people that I've been touring with recently, as opposed to the past, don't necessarily have a stigma attached to it, and understand the value of sort of operating at peak performance. And to do that, they really, from artists to crew members to individuals involved at different aspects of the production at a venue, we work long hours, we have demanding schedules, we travel, we have long days. There's certain stresses that come up, in every form on any given day throughout the production into the show. And I'm appreciative that people are having the conversation and are talking about it, and don't seem as shy or hesitant to engage in that kind of conversation, maybe just even as a few years ago, for me, when I first got started doing this work. So I love that people are open to talk about it. And, at least with the artists that I've worked with, I'm not seeing any trash dressing rooms that we have to deal with after the fact and handle how we settle that bill. And
It's expensive now.
Process. I mean, people will do whatever they feel like doing after the show to kind of relax, but rarely is it anything more than just cleaning up, some beer bottles or things like that in the dressing rooms. And certainly I know even well before my time touring that there was a lot of stories about hotels getting trashed and dressing rooms getting trashed, and big bills associated for that, and cleaning all that up, cleaning that mess up. And it goes the same on the buses too. I mean, every vibe that I've seen so far on the buses is pretty low key, and I think that's great.
Jaime, you've been on some big stuff, and a lot of there's traveling gym and traveling fitness and traveling all the rest of it. That was kind of there before COVID, and you can join if you want to, but man, artists are getting in on it now. Everyone just seems to be banding together. So, what are you seeing there, Jaime?
Well, it's just like Justin said. What I told people when I came out of it was, mentally for me, I felt like an empty truck driving down the road, bouncing down the road, because I didn't have the mental weight of doing shows, the mental weight of getting 100 emails. We all bitch about that, but when it's gone, you're like, what the hell? So I really noticed that I didn't have that mental weight, and I'm bouncing down the road. And I said, well, when I have it, it levels me out, and I roll smooth. And I think a lot. I've told a few people that, and they go, yeah, man, that's it. And then coming back, I think that time that they all had to, sit around and not have that mental weight, everybody, said, yeah, man, I got in shape. I've seen people come back, they've lost weight, they're healthy, they're working out. Just like Justin said, you're seeing more and more, concern with what kind of healthy options do we have on catering and things like that. And everybody's, the juice bar is always busy. So everybody's, taking care of themselves. I think in that break, again, we had time to really just look at it. And mental health, huge. Like Justin said, people are talking about it. I actually was gifted on one of my last tours, like a journal book that a friend of mine gave me that, you could write in. It started a phrase like, today, this, that, and the other thing, and you fill it in. And she showed me hers that she'd been doing, and pre-COVID, we were all just going a million miles an hour, and you just didn't look at things like that. So, fitness is there, mental health is there, and it's being talked about, because it was hard on a lot of people. It's definitely being talked about now. I think people are more open.
It's pretty, there's a lot of stigma to it. And I touched on the opening episode about the stigma surrounding, before, oh, you're one of those. You're one of those, taking care of yourself, and people got offended. Some people get offended on Twitter. You're watching guys work out. It's like, oh, look at them working out. They're better than us. Whatever. Now it's. I mean, everyone. A lot of people are like, what are we doing? How is the gym? Wherever you're staying on a drive day between Texas between Dallas and El Paso has to be. That it has to be better than a day's in, so 10 people can fit into the gym and get it done, and people get pissed about it. It's like, it used to be like they got to have a great bar with with great prices and all the rest of it. Now it's, wow, the gym is shit. Now we're screwed. It's funny how it just changes. It changes like that, but it's really like a massive push on now for us to be well. And I think that's great. And I think, there's a lot of companies out there helping, and a lot of programs like BetterHelp and things like that, where people can tap into anonymously and also amongst each other. Justin, you were talking about people talking about it. I've never heard more discussion on tour than now. Yep. Like just general discussion. Man, I'm not having a great day or something. And it's like, great. What are we doing? All right, let's go for coffee. Let's go for a walk. And everyone's just like, yeah, that's what I need. It's great. It's really awesome to see. So Now, in keeping with that, I don't know about you guys. I consider going on tour like getting ready for a prize fight. So I have to like, get into the gym. My 6 weeks in, I kind of look at it as 6 weeks out from a tour. Gotta do it. Gotta be in as best shape as I can be mentally and all the rest of it to get ready to go on tour, because as well as I do, we're not getting as much sleep. We're not in the gym as much. And by the time you get down to what I'm in, where I've got about 4 days left on tour, these last 2 weeks or last week and a half have been a little bit sluggish to just try to maintain that final thing. So what do you guys do? Part one is, what do you guys personally do to get ready for a tour? Mentally, physically, and all the rest of it. And there's two different things here, because we'll get into the stories here about each individual, what we're going through. But you and Justin and Jaime, there's two different approaches that we have to sobriety, and three different approaches that we have to sobriety here that we're trying to maintain. So, do you get into your head going into a tour? Are you, where are you at going into a tour to properly prep you to get ready for that? Justin, I want to start with you on this.
It's a great question, and something that more and more I'm paying attention to, which I think is important for me, because being on tour is very demanding. Doing what we do, having a lot of responsibility, wearing many hats, requires a certain level of being present that really demands my full capacity, and for that I'm grateful. I mean, this is one of my I'm grateful to be in this line of work, because it teaches me how to operate at a fuller capacity than I ever did previously in my life, and other jobs and things that I've done when I was, had problems with substance abuse and problems with alcohol and drugs. So for me, the prep is mental, is physical, and is spiritual. So as long as I can nurture those things and pay extra attention to them in advance of a tour, and kind of set myself up, like you said, training for a prize fight, the experience of being on tour kind of carries itself, and I'm able to be, as close as I can, try to be a best version of myself to do the best work that I can for these artists and for the companies that we work with. Personally, I work a 12-step program. And I very much believe in moving my body. Physical sweat is a way for me to relieve stress and to kind of maintain discipline and develop a routine, which is helpful for me, especially in advance of a tour, because, not every day can we get to a gym. Not every day can I find an outlet for my support groups. And the other thing for me is that I recognize in advance of a tour that I do feel a certain level of anxiety or fear, perhaps, because you never know, what the new challenges are going to be, and the new personalities and all the different types of people that we, inevitably work with and engage with and are responsible for. So I recognize now a lot quicker and a lot better than I used to, when that anxiety, usually for me, is about as close to a week before I leave. But I quickly try to change my perspective and realize that all I need to do is be myself, and I have confidence in myself and confidence in what I do, and working with different types of personalities is something that was challenging to me before, but with experience, I've learned I think how to deal with that. And for me, again, it's about a focus on being present, being in the moment with these people, and learning how to solve problems, which is what we do.
It's a great answer, and it changes every single time. People think that we just do the same thing every day, and every day there's something new. So that's what makes for me that's a very exciting part of it. Jaime, your story is an interesting one from the standpoint of you've never drank, and you've decided to cut that out of your life right from the get-go. And I want to dive into that in a minute. But your prep for tour, you're not faced with potentially the same, like where I had quit and I've removed alcohol. Justin's done kind of the same. Remove that. We all go through the same band dinners where someone's like, well, how come you're not having wine, or how come you're not having beer? You have to tell a different story every time, where I'm like, I'm just off it. It's over. It doesn't work for me anymore. It never worked for you. And you have to tell that story every single time, which can be just as exhausting as the story that Justin and I have to tell. So how do you prep, never having drank and gone down this road? How do you prep for a tour for all that shit that's going to come at you on that side?
Well, I tell everyone the same thing. I get myself into a state of nervousness. Every show I'm nervous about. And I've always felt that the minute I'm not nervous and I go about this saying I have nothing to worry about, is when I'm going to fail. So I put myself mentally in a state of nervousness about the upcoming tour, and it's dynamic, like you said. So, and though I never drank, it's just under my skin. So I do have to prepare myself mentally for those dinners, those occasions, where somebody, buys a $300-400 bottle of wine or a very expensive bottle of spirits, and you don't want to offend them by not partaking in that. And I have to, without going into my whole past and the reasons why I do it, so I have to prepare myself how to explain that in a light way that's easy for everyone to accept, where it doesn't get uncomfortable with everyone. Because I certainly, it's never with me, I look down on anyone that does anything or anything like that. So I have to prepare myself for that mentally, going out. And, I don't spend a lot of time on it. It kind of comes naturally to me. Growing up and everything, I was the cool guy that threw the parties and everything. And it just came to a point where I was like, no, that's Jaime. He doesn't drink, but he's still cool. And isn't
that funny, that line you just used?
Yeah.
Because you're not cool if you don't drink. Like it's just that stigma. So that's
exactly.
That's a funny line.
Exactly. So, so that's there. And I like to think that carried through when I'm in those social situations. Physically, to prepare myself for the tours. Sorry, the barking.
We're live. It's all good.
But physically, to prepare myself for the tours, I get into sleep patterns. So, I'm not going to bed early. I'm doing the sleep patterns, and trying to, drink a lot of water, work out a little bit, when I can, get your feet in shape, things like that. Again, the mental preparedness is really the big part of it, but the physical aspect of it too is there, because it is exhausting, and also to prepare yourself how to still be focused on lack of sleep. I mean, that's a very real thing. We've all seen the videos of what sleep deprivation does to you, but we've all had the moments where you're just kind of staring and you got to catch up, buffering or whatever, so
I have coffee for that now. I didn't for a long time.
Well,
it was not
I have Coca-Colas, so
yeah. It's that stigma is really, really something, because and it could be detrimental to progress. And I think that for the same reason that we potentially struggle with what's the word I'm looking for? It's not fitting in. That's not what I'm looking for. But that telling that story every time of why you don't drink or how come, because it's the only thing in the world where people ask you how come. When it comes to substance, it's like they don't, I don't do Coke or I don't do that. And they go, no one ever says, oh, how come? Usually it's alcohol, where they go, oh, okay. And it can knock people off. It can just knock people off their journey, or if they are, because it's just like, I'm just tired of this shit. I'm just trying to answer into this, or trying to explain stuff to people. But I'm hoping that through these kind of chats and more of it, that stigma will go away. How do you maintain that? Like, do that, Justin? Do you We get asked all the time, "Do you want to drink?" and say no, and then we got to explain the story. Do you ever get tired of explaining the story about why you're sober, or do you just tell it, own it, and be like, "No, let's do it. You asked. Here we go." You know.
I don't get tired of it. I find myself getting asked less than I used to, and I think again that goes back to the breaking the walls of the stigma, and that maybe it's becoming a little bit more commonplace today, which is great. Maybe there's less of a some form of initial judgment attached to the question or the answer when approached. But for me personally, I'm pretty open about my experience in recovery and in sobriety. It's changed my life, and it's helped define the person that I am today. And as you guys know, I think a lot of our responsibility and role, and a lot of our a lot of the effort that we have to put in our jobs is relationship building. And I find one of the best ways to be successful in doing that, at least for me in my own experience, is being honest and being vulnerable about my experience. I mean, I don't go into all the details. That's not important. But when asked in a situation like at a bar or at dinner, or, with taking out some high profile artists or clients, I don't have a problem addressing it honestly, but doing it in a way that tries to not, project any vibe or judgment onto that person if that's what you want to do. So to make them feel comfortable, but also to be comfortable in being myself and in my own skin and being honest about it.
Keeping in that theme, and then we'll get into this side then. When did you get sober? And sort of what was that the process surrounding that, and mentally, as to, it was time, it's job related. What eventually got you there?
I first got sober in 2015, and I did not have a choice. I had sort of run my life into the ground with substance abuse, and was living in a lot of fear, and finally reached out for help. And my older brother, Jameson, sort of helped kidnap me and put me on a plane to go back home to Cleveland, where I grew up, to go to rehab. And that's sort of when my experience in recovery started. But at that point, I was trying to make it working at a high level music studio as an intern, as an assistant engineer, but struggling with opiate addiction, and didn't really get the opportunities I was hoping for, because I wasn't really a functioning human being without any kind of substances in me at all times. So it became pretty clear after a couple years of living in that cycle of having to wake up and put substances in my body and do whatever I needed to be able to keep that up. Otherwise, I would get sick. Then my life sort of had to come to my career, my work, my life had to come to a halt, and it became obvious that I needed to address this issue. And thankfully, with the love and support of my family, I was able to do just that, and then build a bigger community of people that I keep in touch with on a daily basis, that, one, I relate to, two, I understand, and three, help continue to teach me how to grow and how to be a human being in today's crazy world and in our crazy industry without, needing to use any substances or drink any alcohol.
Good for you, man. And I'm proud of you for that one, and recognizing that. Ironic that you had to reach out to somebody named Jameson to help you take you down to rehab.
I tell people that all the time. That was my favorite drink, Jameson.
Me too. I'm a Jameson guy. Yeah. I was on it a couple weeks ago on a show that I did. When you're putting together your drinking badges and your trophies that you have, and having the Jameson on speed dial would have been my Stanley Cup, and I had them. And so when I showed up and was not drinking anymore, they were like, here's a coffee cup, and you loser. Like, it was just this, it was whatever. But we got, they're great people. They're wonderful. And they send me stuff now that's sober stuff. Here's some golf stuff. Here's a shirt. Here's this. And they actually it's weird because this is like a 10-part series that I'm doing, but I could have it sponsored by Jameson, but just on the golf gear and stuff like that. So yeah, it's interesting. Jamie, you didn't okay, so the question of why did you get sober? I don't know, did you choose to get sober even though you'd never drank? So you choose to remain in sober life. So it's a bit of a different question to you, but it's also the same.
Yeah. So, I got to give you a little background of my upraising. Both my parents, died from substance and alcohol abuse. All my early childhood memories are house parties, drinking. I tell people this and they think I'm kidding. I could tap a keg before I could ride a bike. And so I basically burned out on it before I started. I tell people it's almost like that chip's just been pulled out. I mean, I was just over it before I even started. And I think there's that aspect of it. And that going back to when people ask why, I kind of give them that quick little response. But at the same time, going through school statistically with, my father heroin, my mother cocaine, drugs, drinking, the whole gambit of it. So statistically and genetically, it's there. I can feel it in me. I have an addictive personality. I collect sneakers, Legos, all kinds of, and when I go, I go. So I know it's there. It's just under my skin, And one thing that always stuck out with me was, in school, I had some teachers that literally told me, you'll be locked up by the time you're 25. Just because growing up and dealing with that, I was focused. It was more in survival mode than, being a normal school kid. And I wanted to prove them wrong. And I did. And I don't have a criminal record. And, I'm not, I didn't get addicted. And none of that. So, that's the big thing. But it's still, it's still there right under my skin. I like to think of it as like there is an alcoholic just locked up right there. I mean, and if I just open that door, boom. And I jokingly, actually, when I get offered it, I go, no, I don't drink, and it's for everyone's safety. Because it would just be bad. So
right.
That's a good line.
It's a great line.
Yeah.
But you should add and yours.
Well, yeah, everyone. It's the entire safety. Because it's like a gremlin or something,
Sure. I know. But it's still fun. It's it's interesting that people think, sex, drugs, rock and roll, the whole shebang and what we do. And I don't know how anyone had time for that in the 80s and the 70s, 80s, and even now. What the three of us do on a regular basis is it's, this tour that I'm on right now is 24 on, 24 off, which is almost harder than 3 in a row because you're maintaining that second day and then you're right back into it the day after. It's just an interesting kind of divide. And I couldn't imagine, not that I ever drank when I worked, but I'm just saying, just being moderately sluggish we call this thing chalk to walk in our business, where you walk in when they're chalking the floor and you walk out when the last thing is in the air, when they're pulling the rigging out of the air. And I couldn't imagine being sluggish given the responsibility level that we have now, that we've always had, but just now it's like the world's back, we're touring again, and it's like you guys are the ones running it. So there's not the pressure, don't fuck up, but there's that sort of like, we want to do the best job that we can do. And I mean, I want to be on top of my game. I don't know about you guys, but I want to be there. I want to keep doing this for a very long time,
Absolutely.
So that's so how do you guys maintaining how do you maintain it on tour then? So Jamie, in this regard, as you say, you have an alcoholic brewing inside you that you don't want to let run free. So how do you curb that urge? How do you curb that monster inside you to not let him, unleash him on rigging or something?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very real thing with me. Back home, I attend some AA meetings with a friend of mine. It was very helpful for me, and it's very helpful for him and the group. And this falls right into what we're talking about. He has said to me, he goes, you're an inspiration to me because you're out in doing rock and roll and you can still have a good time and you can still function and you can still be in these instances and not drink. He's like, so that's a huge inspiration for me. That right there empowers me to keep going. And on the flip side of that coin, I tell him, well, and you inspire me because, and like Justin and you, Brenton, because you guys doing this, if my parents would have done that, they might still be alive. So it's a very inspiring thing to me. It's very helpful. So, you know, I do some AA meetings with my friend when I'm home, and for me, when I'm out on the road, because believe me, there are times where I'm like, I wonder what, you know, God
Sure.
damn, this has been a lot of work. I might be great right now, and I just have to, so I just drink my Coca-Colas, lots of music,
Music
what
is everything.
what I'm listening to at any moment. I mean, I'm a playlist guy. I have to have the right music at the right time, like, you know, so that's important to me. So,
well, I want to get into playlists in a second, but Justin, how are you maintaining out there, bud?
I want to get into that too, because I find myself, at least I think of myself as an elite playlist curator. So we have to get into the test, boys. I too attend AA meetings and try to, you know, one of the great things about what's happened over the pandemic is Zoom, and so being able to whether it's on an off day in person or whether I can find some time to log in and listen to a Zoom meeting, that's very important to me, and I try to maintain a routine of doing that as much as I can throughout the week on a week-to-week basis. I'm not the best at it, and I don't really, you know, I don't really know how to do it. But meditation is important, and it's okay that I don't know how to do it. It's just that I make an effort. And really, what I mean when I say that is to try to find moments throughout our busy, crazy day to privately just breathe and just sort of stay calm. And I've really found that to be helpful for me because, again, dealing with different types of personalities and egos and then problems and just the general rise of the day leading up to a show for us. What I tried to do, at least, is be a steady, calming influence on the day and on the team and on the production.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to kind of quiet myself, try to take a couple breaths here and there, close my office door, even for just a minute or 30 seconds. Sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes I do it just to make sure that I can stay present and I can stay even keeled. And like you said, even sometimes I'm zoning out and I'm exhausted. But you know, that's important to me. And then when I can, you know, I try to move my body. I try to work out on off days. I guess the last thing that I would add is a creative expression, and maybe we'll get into that with playlist editing, creation,
or start a podcast. You know,
right?
That's how I had to do. That's how I had to do.
You know, I also make music and produce music in my free time, and you know, I think the one thing that I've noticed in sobriety is I always thought I had to be high or on drugs in order to be creative in the past, and I've noticed recovery that actually I've unlocked new doors and things that I didn't even realize about my creative expression and my creativity in general in my sobriety. And I think that's pretty cool. So for me, that's sort of the mind part of it. You know, the mind, body, spirit are kind of things that I try to nurture and grow at different levels, you know, when I can. But sometimes timing, it's more of one than the other, or none of them, or some all together. Those are the best days. But
that's funny that you bring that up, because one of the things I wanted to talk about was what surprised you the most about becoming sober. And there's a few things here. It's like, what's our definition of sobriety? What, you know, everyone has their own version of it. But what has surprised you the most about being an addict or being an alcoholic and removing that from your life, and sort of what this has opened up? And then, you know, Jaime, to that point of like, what I'll consider you, because you put yourself into this spot where you said that there's an alcoholic inside you trying to come out. So I believe that you are the same as us, and I don't mean that discrediting anything like that because you haven't drank. What I'm saying is you're still battling the same that we go through, or we're trying to do the things we do on a daily basis to just maintain, things. And it gets easier over time. I'm 3 years, and now I recognize little tiny things now if something will creep in. So, but to keep it light for a sec, what's your favorite part of the day? You touched about closing your door and all the rest of it. Do you guys have a favorite part of the day that you enjoy? That, like, for me, it's 30 minutes before doors. No one's in the building. I'm sitting in a chair. The arena's empty. Take a look around. Everyone has done their job. All of us. And I'm not talking about the people in the building. I'm talking about marketing, ticketing, buyers, everyone did their job to make that moment happen. And you sit there in complete silence, knowing that there's going to be 15,000 people in that building losing their mind. That's my day. That's my part of the day. And it's real clear to me, and I appreciate that day more than anything now that I've got a really clear head overall too. So what's your favorite part of the day, Jaime? Is he cut? Did he stop there? Can you hear me?
Well, it's similar to yours. I've always, what I've loved we do is taking, am I still here?
Yeah, I got you. You're cutting a little bit, but we'll get through it.
Okay. So my thing was when walking in and first thing in the morning, then turning it into something and then taking it back to nothing again. That's my big. Walk in the morning and it's just an empty arena floor. There's nothing there. We're going to build this show, and everybody that comes to it, they think it's taken a week to build that stage, and they think that it's in a closet in the building somewhere. And you say, no, we came in this morning and we're going to be gone tonight. You're going to come see a hockey game here tomorrow. So that calm when you walk in the morning and the floor mark starts and there's nothing there, that's cool. And then I project to later when you're going to climb into your bunk or whatever, and you've completed it.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, looking forward to that moment. But, and the doors thing that you mentioned too, that's another amazing one as well. Those are, my favorites as well. And a lot of times, even just when the first, when the show starts, that energy, man, sometimes for me, I get even like choked up sometimes, where I'm like, man, this is so powerful, like
I've never missed an intro to a show I've done ever.
Yeah. I mean,
I'll never miss it. That's why we do it. The lights go out. What the hell are we doing if we can't have that moment?
And it doesn't matter if the act that you're doing is something you don't like. I mean, or whatever, just that power, the audience feeding off the artist. That's amazing. It's amazing.
Justin?
I'm no different than you guys. We're obviously all similar here and feel the same way. I love the calm before the storm, first thing in the morning, the quiet, the empty arena, other than, a conversion staff or local house guys that assist our crew on walk and chalk. But for me, it's the moments right before show start. It's the palpable energy with the bodies in the building. And, I guess, like you said, too, at the end of the night, Jaime, it's the sense of fulfillment of, pulling off a successful show and everybody feeling happy, and then on to the next one. So sometimes right before I crawl into my bunk, I do like to write in a journal and kind of reflect on how I feel in that moment and that gratitude, but also just sort of a little recap of sort of what the day was like. And sometimes, usually in between tours when I'm home, I get to open that up sometimes and look at it and relive the memories of maybe things I forgot just on the day to day about how it went. But for me, it would be the kind of those three key points: the walking in, the empty venue, empty arenas, the palpable energy right before show, and then kind of reflecting on the day in my bunk.
But they're all therapeutic in their own way as well. You've got that calm, no problems yet. All the crew, we don't know if the crew's all here yet. You just kind of show up. You're like, nothing's happened yet. And then it's like, doors are on time. All right. And then it just slowly, and I try to tell everyone, from our world, it's always go, 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 go. It's go, 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 go all the time. So if you're not taking something for yourself, then you're wasting an opportunity. Right. And so a baseball player, that's their relaxed state. A hockey player, a football player, somebody on Wall Street, maybe they have a moment where they like the day and they can relax and see how their day goes. I don't know. Everyone has something that they have to take for themselves. And in our business, I try to tell our team when they come and visit or people out, I'm like, have you taken this moment to kind of like look around? And some people will just be like, whatever, it's this show and it's whatever. But then there's some people that'll be like, I never looked at it that way. It's like, when those lights go out, every single person in that building is getting exactly what they want.
Yep.
Including us. I mean, as far as like everything worked that day, then tomorrow's another day. And then they work that day. And then. You want them all to work every single day. I'm sure we've all had our moments where the occasional thing doesn't. But what a therapeutic, great feeling that is when the lights go out and everyone's getting everything they want right at that moment. And on this tour, especially that I'm on, it's a lot of kids' first concert. It's a lot of parents taking their kids to the first concert and watching their kids react to the first concert. This is the most therapeutic tour I've ever been on, because I will move kids to the pit and watch them explode internally at what, and it's such a therapeutic feeling. Like it's a thing now, like it has to happen. And that would happen with any concert that we do. I'm sure you guys, Justin, you have to move people around on your tour and stuff. And if you move them closer, what an amazing feeling. It's a lot of therapy. It's very therapeutic to us. And I think it's a great part of the day. Lots to cover, but I know we're running on time here. So as far as your the biggest surprise to doing this job sober, then removing sex, drugs, rock and roll, the madness, and everything we read from Metal Edge magazine in the 80s and 90s, and Rip magazine and Rolling Stone and all this shit. What's the biggest surprise to you about doing this sober, Jaime?
Well, the biggest surprise for me is just how efficient it's become. How, I think the reason why it was so crazy in the past was because, it was just easy. Well, not easier, but with technology and whatnot, just how efficient it's become. And again, how you've got to have the mental clarity to do this, to run these things. If we've all heard it, like if you took all the road people that were out on tours and dispatched them to like a national emergency, it would get handled. It would get handled. And that's what's surprising to me. And a lot of people that are sober and everything, just doing that. And just, it's just amazing to me, just overall.
Justin, takeaway from doing this sober?
For me, I think, one, it's that I can, two, that I'm not alone, and there are many other people just like me that are involved in this unique lifestyle. And, I think you touched upon this on your first episode, Brent, but we've talked about it a little earlier, but I've never experienced, up until this point in my life and in my work history and in my personal history, I've never experienced a job that, or a type of work that really teaches me how to operate at a higher capacity than I've ever done before. Sort of vibrate at a higher frequency, and I owe that all to sobriety, because there's no way that I could maintain this job or do, I think, the type of work that we do if I wasn't sober, for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's great that other people can, but for me, I'm just speaking on my experience. there's no way I could do it based on how I like to drink and use and how I've done that in the past. So I think that's one of the biggest surprises is that ultimately the sense of fulfillment and gratitude I get because I'm capable and able of operating at a higher capacity in this type of work environment than I've ever experienced before. And I think that's really cool.
I think Bradley Cooper touched on it. And I touched on it a little while ago where he quit because he's like, I just didn't feel like, Jamie, you said you project your day, right? You go in, you load, and then you project, and this is where it's going to go, and this is how it's going to go. And Bradley was the same. I just didn't project myself being very successful at it, and he wasn't tapping into his full potential. And it's cliche to say because all the books say it. You're gonna, reach your full potential, but until you've been in it, and then you remove it, and then you see what's there, or in your case, Jamie, where you're trying to completely avoid it, and focusing your attack on your mental wellness and just powering through and doing the best job. It's such a rewarding feeling, knowing that you're doing it like that. So, all right, we've got it. I mean, we can't tease the audience about playlists and not talk about playlists. So you lead this one, Justin. What are we talking about here? What you're curating for us? Are you going to curate for the listener, or are we just going to share our daily playlist here?
I'm happy to share anything if any listener wants to chime in. I can follow up and share some things. No, I mean, I humbly, I just love music as well. And it sounds like Jamie, I create different playlists for different moods, for different atmospheres, for different people. I take pride in sending people playlists, and I also try to tell a story and make sure that there's a beginning, an intro, a middle, and an end. And so I pay attention to, if it's within one genre, how it builds and it comes to an end, or if it's in multiple genres, sort of how the flow, how it goes. But I don't know. I think way too much about this kind of stuff, but I love it and I enjoy it. And it sounds like I'm amongst like people here.
The lost art of the mixtape, my friend.
Yes.
Yep.
The classic, it's got to flow when you're putting a record together. Well, what are you actually listening to right now? Like, what's a daily go-to that kick your morning off? I know our moods are all different every day, but what's kind of like a must, has to be in there every day, and then the rest of it kind of plays out from there?
Oh man, I'm a music seeker, so I'm always looking for new music. So I have stuff that I grew up on that my musical taste has evolved and grown over time. But really, to answer your question just directly, my go-to is sort of my liked songs automatic playlist on Spotify, because if I hear anything new, I like it and it goes right there. And because clearly we've talked about this, I'm an addict. I'm an addict in recovery, and I have a very addictive personality. I will listen to songs over and over and over again. So that's generally where I start, and then you get to know a team, like the production managers or the production coordinators, and if we're all sharing the same office that day, there's always a question of like, okay, guys, what's the vibe going to be like today? What do you want to listen to? And that can range from anywhere, So I love music. I love working music, and I love being around it. And it's a very important and integral part of my day-to-day living. So music is always happening.
Jamie, what's on your playlist every day?
Oh man, I'm all over the place. Like what I usually do all through my day. I like videos, so I'll do music videos. But nice. For example, big one the kick I've been on this last few days of this tour, and I actually like put it on the phone and told everyone, okay, shut up and listen to this. It's Christopher Cross, Sailing. I'm like, we need to just listen to this right now. And so I go walk through the airport and play, Sailing, Yacht Rock, and then it goes Lana Del Rey, it goes Stone Temple Pilots, Pearl Jam playing Pink Pop Festival, to some Slipknot, to I'm all over the place, Massive Attack, and some actually last shows one of the runners was like, hey, what do you listen to? And I just ran it down there like, my God, dude,
it really is. It puts us all over the place, man.
Yeah, but again, I was just like, I need to hear what's that song. This is like yeah, sailing. That's what I need to hear right now. And so it's like at the top of my iPhone right now. So
I get a question a lot about, well, who you going out with? And like, we don't, people think we get to pick per se.
yeah.
There's like, oh, there's just a list you can just pick from. I'm like, it doesn't necessarily work like that. So you don't always go out with an artist that I want to say necessarily want to be with, but you go out with something that might be not in your normal genre that where you are or whatever. So I have to your point, Justin, like I love music as well. I have less patience for certain kinds, but I try to pull something out of every tour that I'm on, like a moment. So I go, all right, I don't dig the band, but that moment in that show was magical to watch. It was amazing to watch. So I'm going to pull that tune into my playlists. And it's sort of like it's like an instant like memory bank. Yeah. It's not just like, hey, I'll have a Slipknot song or I'll have a Deftones song or I'll have this and that. It's great. But also got a Rihanna song. I've got a Shakira song. What are you talking about? It's like, yeah, but there was a moment in her show that was like magical. And when you see it happen, you're like, I don't want to forget that. And the only way I can remember that is either I write a journal like you guys, or it goes into the playlist. So that's kind of an interesting one. Or you'll pull, I had the pleasure of being out with Lamb of God last summer and Megadeth. And there's a song called Resurrection by Lamb of God that is the heaviest thing I've ever seen. And I'm a Pantera fan and I'm a Slipknot fan. And it's the heaviest live song I've ever witnessed in my life. Slayer. And it's just, there's various versions of it, but if you guys get a chance to see that, do it. That's all I'm going to say. So, all right. One last question and then I'll let you go. Favorite show you've ever worked? What's your best show memory? Like this was what a moment this was. What's your favorite show memory? Jamie? Jamie's going to freeze out on us on the last question. What? No way. Is he there?
Wow, man.
There he is.
Wow.
Jamie's back. He's back.
Am I freezing?
Well, you were frozen, but we got you. We got you back. You're good.
Okay. Am I back?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a tough one. Probably Rage Against the Machine 1998 with Gangstar as a support. That was powerful. Just him just coming out. We are Rage Against the Machine from Los Angeles, California. Two trusses of lights, a backdrop, boom, and just power. Man, that's got to be one. That's got to be it.
Did you work that show, or is that something that you went to see?
Well, I worked that show. I went to see one prior to that in Spanish Fork, Utah, where they shut the town down because religious reasons, and they thought like the devil was coming and the riots were starting in the city. I actually did an interview with Tom Morello about it, and my buddy broke his leg at that show, but went to that show, and then later in '98 was getting into the biz and was working that show. And I mean, that's got to be one of my top shows. I mean, there's others too, like a Chris Cornell show that I did in a theater when he was doing Euphoria Morning, his solo album. Man, that one sticks out as really powerful. A lot of Tori Amos shows, but that Rage show, man, at the Maverick Center.
I've still never seen him live. That's on the list. Justin, what do you got, bud?
That's a fantastic answer. You guys have been doing this a little bit longer than I have, but for me, what popped into mind was working a Bush tour, and third last song of the set every night. It was an amphitheater run, a shed run, and Gavin Rosdale would always run out and perform in the audience. And I volunteered to be his personal security on that tour, so I was running with him. And a lot of different fun memories from that experience. Guy's still in pretty good shape, and he would try to lose me all the time. And but one of my favorite memories was at the Greek Theater in Los Angeles, which is where I've called home for the last 20 years. So one, to finally be able to work a show there, and as related to that show, he got up on the second deck on the railing and was standing up over the railing, and I had to
do a not cool rock and roll moment and just make sure I was holding him by the belt buckle as he was leaning off, because I didn't want our principal to fall or get hurt during the event. But somebody took a pretty cool photo of it, and so I have that memory as a still. But that was a good one.
Awesome stuff, man. Gentlemen, appreciate your time. And the purpose of this series is to talk about what's going on in our business a little bit, shed some light on it, and echo to everyone out there that it's okay, man. It's okay to ask for some help, or it's okay to talk to some people about it. Our business is coming off of it was a very stressful time before COVID, and then now COVID shut the business down and made it very stressful for our colleagues. Some, as we mentioned, didn't make it through, and some have come out the other side sober, or have come out the other side with reflection. And I'm here for all of it. I want to make sure that anyone watching this understands it can be done, and it can be done with help and with friends and with colleagues like yourselves. So I appreciate you guys being here. That is Justin Fry. That is Jaime Horton, fellow reps, good buddies, and we're out here doing it and trying to maintain it and have a great support group and all the rest of it. I want to send a shout out quickly here to my friends at On Tour that started this amazing app and amazing thing on Instagram. So for people like us that are out there running and doing things and trying to document our journey out here, On Tour is great for that. They love the support, and that's awesome. And then also my friends at Partake. Look at this. These guys, Partake. Look at that crowd in the background. You've heard me talk about them. It is a non-alcoholic beer that is fantastic. 10 calories, vegan, gluten-free, and Ted and all the gang there have created this product for people. He had Crohn's disease, so he had to just stop drinking, but didn't want to. So he created one that allowed him to do it. And then it helps for people like me on tour that like the occasional taste of a beer, but there's nothing in it. So Partake, my friends over there. That is the Brenton On Tour podcast for another week. I appreciate you guys tuning in weekly for the Sober on Tour series. It's going to continue. More guests on the way. And thanks for your support, everybody. We'll see you next week. All right. We get a little graphic here to say goodbye. Thanks, everybody.